This is a wild week and a wild day. You know that I want to talk to you about that assassination attempt on Trump, the latest one, and the suspicious nature of it, and how this is kind of a problem for me in a unique way. I also want to talk about what's going on with the latest strategies in October for Harris and Trump, and there may be, and it looks like Joe Rogan might be doing an interview with Harris too. We're going to find out a bit of that. I'm going to give you some inside reports on all of this, but the main thing is it's possible. I'm hearing from some economists gold hitting up to $3,000 an ounce. You know why? The instability of the American election. I mean, I'll be honest with you. If Trump is in, the market's going to take a sigh of relief. If Trump isn't in, it's going to be dollar free fall. It's going to be crazy time. You want to go to the place where your long-term stability is going to be garnered and protected. I've done this for a long time with you guys, for a year or two with Birch Gold. We're coming to an end of that cycle soon, and because I'm going to continue to offer it, but you need to move fast to get the 21-page report. If you don't understand why, all nations are moving to gold, and they're decoupling from the American unstable dollar. Go to lancewallnau.com/gold, lancewallnau.com/gold. I do want you to be able to get these reports on what's happening with BRICS nations, the global economy, and I believe we're going to have a front row seat, and we'll be as accurate as possible in predicting the trends. But I can tell you this: the silver is mine and the gold is mine. Comes from Haggai, a chapter of a prophet in the Old Testament, who said, in the end of time, God is going to shake everything. And then he says, silver and gold is stable, basically because God has purposes. lancewallnau.com/gold. And let's get into the show. So much to cover today. We don't want to miss any of these powerful stories. First of all, the third possible assassination attempt on Donald Trump. Folks, I wonder if you and I appreciate BlackRock, the military-industrial complex, the multi-billion-dollar interests that are invested in continuing the present regime because it funds their endless wars, it supports their agenda. I was reading a document, and I'll probably bring it in the studio tomorrow. I have his investor analysis, and one of them says that the real backstory of the war in Ukraine is that the London banks are on the hook for underwriting Ukrainian economic stability. So they've got like $40 or $50 billion worth of liability, which the London banks cannot afford to flush down the toilet. They already are having economic and societal upheaval. They're locking people up for social media posts in the UK that they deem offensive. They're going into the dark dystopian Orwellian capture of the deep state, taking over the parliament and the government, and then the influx of radical Muslims that have come in have created a consolidated voting bloc that intimidates the working class Brit who sees their nation drifting away from them and is beginning to protest and mobilize on their own in the streets. They cannot afford, in other words, the timing of an economic collapse. So therefore, the UK will increase the war drums with Russia. And then, of course, France is in bed with the English because they share an economic codependency with Britain in their banking structure in Europe. So the point that I'm saying is, you think the issue is Russia and Ukraine. It isn't. It's banking interests in Europe that want an expanded, more aggressive war with Russia, because it's the only way they can avoid getting stuck. They want Russia to have to pay reparations. They want Russia to have to pay the price, and it's not going to happen. I'm telling you, Russia is more righteous than Europe right now. In Russia, they forbid the transgender ideology from being taught. In Russia, they forbid racism from being taught. In Russia, oddly enough, they forbid an attack on the state, on the flag. In other words, they uphold Orthodox Christianity, and the evangelical Christians now are being given national television coverage and support from the state because they see themselves as the cultural preservation of what once was a Christian Europe. You know, Putin's an odd cat. He ain't no Sunday school kid. But he has his mother actually had a Christian orientation. And so he's had a soft spot for Christian worldview. And it coincides with his conservative instincts in terms of his value structure about family. He is anti-LGBTQ. That's why they're so obsessed with him in the State Department, because he shut down Hillary Clinton and the State Department's efforts to bring in well-funded underground 501c3s, or they have a different word for them in government. But they want to get these nonprofit groups, these NGO groups, to start to weave, and Putin kicked them all out because they were trying to seed revolution, cultural revolution, you know, the liberation like in the United States, which he sees as a moral collapse. I'm going on a little bit here because what I want you to hear is it's not what they say it is. It isn't about Russian aggression in Ukraine and Zelensky, the hero of you know, the century. He shuts down the voices of freedom. He shuts down anyone competing with him for an election. He's actually the model of what democracy doesn't look like. But I digress. It's about money, and then it's about ideology. It's not about what you think it is. And I'm sorry, we're in a day where you have to go in shows like the Lance Wallnau Show, or on the War Room, or on Flashpoint, or Dan Bongino. Our task is to actually, with a spirit, you might say, almost like a prophetic discerning, pierce the veil of the manipulated subject matter to get to the actual essence of it. By the way, I had to wait till my son got back from his countdown. He counted me in, then he went over to the table. Carl's filling in for Mercedes today. So if you see Mercedes with a beard, remember that's my son Carl. And you don't have to worry about how she's doing. She's flying in. Carl, thanks for joining us today. I'm interested in your opinion on something I'm going to go to in a minute regarding these hurricanes and stuff. But right now, let me go to who is Vern Miller. You know who Vern Miller is? He's the third potential assassin. But let me talk to you about my problem with figuring this guy out. He's 49 years old, taken into custody Saturday evening, trying to get into a Trump rally. Now catch this. With fake VIP press and presence credentials. I don't like someone who shows up at a rally trying to get close to Trump with fake ID. I don't like fake number plates on your SUV. That's the moment when I want to lock this guy up. Fake plates, fake ID, fake VIP status. Oh, and what has he got? He's got she's got a shotgun, a high-capacity magazine, and a loaded handgun. He incongruently says, well, I don't really know anything about guns. I just travel with an arsenal. Well, what the heck are you going to do with your fake ID, fake license plate, getting into a Trump rally with access to your high-caliber loaded guns and handguns? Sounds suspicious, doesn't it? Well, I'm an investigative journalist, he says. Self-described investigator. I love Trump. I'm a MAGA guy. Yeah. Well, how do we know that that isn't your cover? I love Trump. That's why it's like John Wilkes Booth. There's a great picture you have, a rare picture of Lincoln's second inaugural. And he's standing there, 1865, delivering his inauguration address just a few months before he's shot. And there's William Booth in the crowd looking at him. He's a Lincoln supporter. Find out later, Ford's Theater, he was also a movie critic, and he shot Lincoln. Anyway, this guy was released. Our police is interesting, isn't it? $5,000 bail. All right, you're free. Well, he'll probably be on his way to the next Trump rally. So what is Vem Miller? He works for the America Happens Network. Now, here's where I have a problem. His bona fides, as they say. He's got a right-wing radio show or a podcast show that's on Rumble that he works with. He has a variety of right-wing characters like, you know, Mike Lindell or Nigel Farage, he's interviewed. Steve Miller, he's got pictures with. So it's a little confusing to me. Maybe this is one of our tribe. And by tribe, I mean maybe our let's just say our group has a variety of characters in it. Maybe he's just dumb. Maybe he, who knows why he had fake number plates or fake VIP credentials and guns in his vehicle, going to a Trump rally like a dummy as a fake pseudo-investigative reporter. But he's actually a MAGA conspiracy-oriented journalist, or he's a right-wing documentarian anyway, with a Rumble channel there. Says he's been a MAGA activist for years. What do you guys think? I'm just telling you, people like this should be punished for the sheer stupidity and culpability. Plates? What's the story with fake ID plates? And you only get a $5,000, you're on bail? I don't know. What did they do to that guy in the golf, the guy who was trying to shoot Trump at the golf course? I mean, I hope they realize, I hope we're all able to hear that these guys are being prosecuted a little bit more aggressively. So, cops are branding it a third assassination bid. I want to know who Vem Miller is, don't you? All right, now, I want to cover this thing here. So, Bret Baier is said to be interviewing Kamala Harris. I heard that Joe Rogan is going to do an interview with Donald Trump. Now, that's huge, folks. Carl, what's the average viewing audience for Rogan? Do you know?
I don't off the top of my head.
Well, I heard Harris is toying with a Joe Rogan interview. Is that true?
Yes. So the Joe Rogan Experience had 14.5 million followers, almost triple the platform's second most popular program. And he also has over 19 million followers on Instagram and 19 million followers on YouTube.
What would you say is the average age of a Joe Rogan listener?
I would definitely say under the age of 35, predominantly male, is usually who he's pulling in.
Okay, so maybe would you say 20 to 40 would be the big scope there?
Yeah, I would probably say closer to 18.
18 years old?
He appeals to the UFC demographic, which tends to be young men coming of age.
So, Carl, what is Harris? Do you think Harris is going to go on Rogan?
I would love it if she did. I don't think she will. I don't think that she does well with real-time clapbacks or people actually checking her, verifying anything that she has to say. So I doubt that it's actually going to come to fruition unless it's an incredibly heavily edited episode, which...
I think it could go one of two ways. I think it could go really well or go really poorly. It all depends on Rogan. If Rogan asks the tough questions like, hey, where do you stand on this, like, transgender stuff? And, that's really freaking me out with, or government censorship. Like, Elon Musk, you made some comments here. Maybe you can clarify for our people. Those kinds of questions would be great. But if Joe hits the bong and is partying, and the two of them are talking about California vibes, and, she could end up appealing. I get nervous about this stuff, people. But the long form, I believe, is going to be her danger, because the longer the form, the less word salad you can get away with, especially with Rogan. If he's in the right state of mind, I mean, he's going to be pugilistic with Trump. He'll be polite, but he'll push on Trump, because I think he's got male energy to go up against the guy. But Rogan, I don't know how he does with female interviews, especially when he has to be equally strong. She'd be smart if she did it, and it's a risk. That demographic, that age group is the age group she does well with, by the way. It's funny, it's actually, I just looked at the crosstabs yesterday. It's the age group, I got some notes. It's like the age group from like 18 to 30 is strong with the Democrats, mostly because of college influence. But then when you go to 30 or 29 to 40, it goes the opposite direction, and they go conservative. Because then they got to pay taxes, they got to get a job, they start looking at the practical impact of policies, and they start moving towards capitalism.
Well, that also reminds me of an old saying: if you aren't liberal before you're 25, you don't have a heart, and if you aren't Republican after you're 25, you don't have a brain.
Well, there you go, people. Yeah, that is a quote. I wonder where that came. I thought it was a Churchill quote, maybe. All right, listen, we're going to be right back. Don't go anywhere. First segment, would move zippity-doo-dah fast. We're going to be right back, and you don't want to miss part 2.
We're entering a period of time that has increased hostility against people of faith. It's a time when Christians are going to be tested on a moral, physical, psychological, and even a financial basis. I'm here to remind you that God is the one who has blessed you thus far, and he will take care of you in the future. You have a divine responsibility, however, to see trouble and prepare yourself. For example, with record inflation eating away at the value of the US dollar, the savings in your retirement account is in danger of slipping away. I recommend diversifying your 401k or IRA out of paper assets and into physical gold. And the best way to do that is with a gold IRA from Birch Gold Group. Now that includes no penalties, there's no taxes when you transfer current retirement funds into Birch Gold. To see how it works, I want you to go to lancewallnau.com/Birch and get your free info kit, and you'll be glad that you did.
Anyway, I want to play one of our grand inquisitors, the poobah of our movement, Charlie Kirk, is going to then share with us about this young voter in the Joe Rogan demographic that is voting for Queen Kamala. And what you see here is the absence of deep thinking and philosophical reflection in youth on college campuses, encountering a young guy who's thinking. I'll let you figure out which one is which. Watch this.
I'm guessing you're voting for Kamala Harris.
Yes, my queen.
Yeah, okay. What's her greatest accomplishment?
Well, as vice president, I'm not sure. I guess I have nothing. I'm stumped.
What is the best thing she's ever done?
I think some of the stuff she did as district attorney in San Francisco is pretty impressive.
Such as?
So like the
releasing violent offenders that ended up killing people and raping women?
No, I don't support that.
Oh, yeah, okay. No, but I mean, what has she done as vice president that makes you be like, she's my queen?
Okay, sorry. Now it looks really bad because I won't answer the question.
Why should people vote for Kamala Harris?
Right now, because she's not Trump.
Oh, not Trump.
Yeah.
That is so if Mussolini was running, would you vote for Mussolini?
No, can I explain a little bit more further?
Wait, yeah, so please, I'm curious, why should people vote for Kamala Harris? I'm super interested, actually.
Yeah, so right now, Kamala Harris, if you look at Trump's record, how many people have left, like, or in prison right now, like Steve Bannon, Peter Navarro, George Nader, Michael Cohen,
Navarro's
Michael
not
Flynn.
in prison, but yeah. So your argument is that a bunch of people around Trump are being targeted by a lawfare state? That's your argument?
We're going to the lawfare thing. Okay. I can see it.
No, but please tell me, why should people vote for Kamala? Give me a reason.
Oh, I don't have a reason. I'm sorry.
He doesn't have a reason. It's just Queen Kamala, yuck, yuck, yuck. Not Trump, yuck, yuck, yuck. You can read it, right? I mean, that's basically it. And by the way, I respect the courage of anybody that's going to go up there and try to make a case when they know they don't have a case. So what you see is what is common, and that is we have a lot of young minds on college campuses that are taught what to think. They're not taught how to support what they think. Because, I'm sure you could find something about Kamala Harris that could be better than, well, I don't know what she's done, but she's not Trump. And that's the whole point. They really want to make this about it's not Trump. That's what their argument is. But every now and then, we actually find help coming from the Democrats, believe it or not. Bill Clinton, unfortunately, and I understand what he's saying. Bill Clinton is making an interesting argument here. I'm going to try to defend Bill Clinton, but Donald Trump took Bill Clinton's quote and he actually made it into a campaign ad for himself. Watch this segment.
Case in Georgia not very long ago, didn't you? They made an ad about a young woman who'd been killed by an immigrant. Yeah, well, if they'd all been properly vetted, that probably wouldn't have happened. But if they're all properly vetted, and that doesn't happen, and America is not having enough babies to keep our populations up. Okay. So we need immigrants that have been vetted to do work. Right. There wouldn't be a problem. And he couldn't keep people all torn up and upset.
Donald Trump approved that as an ad because former President Bill Clinton basically said Laken Riley, who he was referring to, would be alive today if Kamala Harris and Joe Biden just did the proper vetting of illegals. So the illegals are coming in because Venezuela's not stupid. These countries aren't stupid. Why should they have the government hemorrhaging funds to support prisons and and reform programs when they could just dump them in the United States. The Mexican drug cartels are making a fortune. This is their business is as big as Apple. They're doing a booming business. Well, you got 20 million illegals or 10 million coming over at $1,000 a piece. You do the math. And so they literally have their territories marked up. How many miles does each cartel have of the porous American border that they fund to bring their people through? By the way, do you think that Hezbollah is in Lebanon? After Soleimani was killed, the FBI has released data that Hezbollah actually, with Iranian funding, has relocated to Venezuela under Maduro, where they had their camps in order to work their way into the United States. We have Hezbollah right now in the United States through the border, working through the cartels, with Venezuela being their stationing. This is what the FBI knows. Trump says, kill them. If the cartels are going to be mobilized armies that the Mexican government doesn't take apart because they're not equipped to deal with them, I'll deal with them, and he'll take them out like he took out ISIS. He just has to have them consolidated enough so that he could justify, in the interest of the United States, doing a preemptive strike on them. They know that. Why do you think the assassination attempts concern us? Because the cartels have an interest in staying in business, oddly enough, along with BlackRock and the military-industrial complex. Strange bedfellows, you say. All right, back to the thing with President Clinton. I heard Dr. Phil, in a moment of singular clarity, he made this statement. He said, look, America's birth rate has to be 2.5 babies per family have to be born in order to sustain the economic foundation of the United States going forward. You have to have a certain percentage of population to support. You can't have the bottom narrow and the top large because it tilts over. So you have to have immigration. This is where a lot of my people go, close the border. We don't need them. Well, wait a second. 2.5 is the goal. 1.5 is what we're delivering. And in Europe, it's less than that. That's why Muslims are taking over Europe. They believe in having large families. They're pro-life. They have 5 kids per family. Problem is, they're Muslim. The problem with that is, if they're radical Muslims, you're multiplying a completely contrary culture to what you have in Germany or France or Britain historically. It's all going to be within 30 years, it's going to be like the Middle East. Anyway, President Clinton is making the point, you have to have immigration. The question is, who comes in? That's where the idiots, and I call them idiots kindly, the idiots that are running the agenda on flying open the borders to people that are hearing money waved at them and freebies. They're being brought in under the seduction of a Democrat government that'll legalize them to vote for the freebies like they would get in Venezuela or any other dysfunctional Marxist socialist nation where we'll give you this and we'll give you that and we'll give you this. And by the way, the black community, black men in particular, are voting more for Trump. Now, not to a majority, but the data is saying they're moving up to like 18 to 20%, which is huge. Because a lot of them, like some guys we're going to have on next week, in Chicago, are saying their plan is to start locking up black people for crime. They're going to start locking up because they've got to move the black community out to make room for the compliant illegals who they are funding with cell phones and rent and property and money and food, and they're giving the low-wage jobs to. And the black male is being pushed aside. There's a cycle of incarceration potentially coming. Kamala Harris was the great incarcerator in California. She runs on this tough-on-crime thing. Trump was the one getting the black men out of prison for capricious or for, marijuana charges. Harris was actually the one who was capriciously locking them up or letting them loose on the street. It was one extreme or the other. The point is, Clinton's actually right. You need immigration, but you need immigration with vetting. then Laken Riley and others like her wouldn't be killed. And there's going to be more and more because these indigenous cells are in the United States right now, and the prisons have been let out. So these folks are now in the bloodstream. It's not manifesting fast enough in America for you to see it in the election cycle, but you will see it. All right, final story I want to do is, how is this going to affect, how is the hurricane going to affect voting in Georgia and North Carolina? Let me give you some quick feedback here. A lot of us are worried about election integrity, and rightly so. You've got an election now where Harris is up by 1 point, according to a lot of the left Democrat polls. Trump is tied with her, maybe up 1 point, according to our polls. But nobody is saying this is a guaranteed victory for Harris or for Trump. So it's a neck-and-neck photo finish. And so it really comes down to 2020. They have tight rules for absentee ballots now in Georgia. You folks did your job. It's a crime. I understand we have a Curb Your Enthusiasm episode. Chelsea, you got to find that episode where Larry David is in Curb Your Enthusiasm. I think he's giving bottles of water or snacks or something.
Yeah, bottle of water.
I got to see that episode. I got to see what that segment is and put it up. But you can't do that with people in line. If they're fainting, it doesn't matter, because you might be giving them that water bottle and saying, hey, vote for Harris or something like that. So, but they want the election results in that night at 8 p.m. Forget this. We got to wait 3 days. America can't handle a civil war and the balance, the teapot ready to blow up because we're waiting for results from Georgia. So they're going to get those results in by midnight. But then Trump said, hold on there, Hashimoto. I want a hand count confirmation. Votes over here tabulated, hand count over here. I don't want 20,000 extra votes, not because, and 20,000 ballots are short. Well, that puts a little more pressure on the cheat mechanism if you're going to cheat. So, but then Raffensperger, who I've often referred to contemptuously as Ratatouille, he says, well, then you're not going to get your vote count on the same day. I'm going to make it so that it's going to be a couple of days later. So there's a little battle going on. Once again, Ratatouille, I don't think, is on the side of the Republican Party. North Carolina, they had the hurricane. I'm going to go a minute over here. This is, we just got to do what we got to do here with this program. But with the hurricane, I want you to know that the hurricane has had devastating effect in those rural areas. The cities are going to turn out the Democrat votes. Axelrod said, hey, the Republicans are the ones who are going to suffer because their people won't be resourceful enough to figure out how to vote, but our people will be up on their feet in no time, which I thought was a kind of a strange statement. And I don't think I'm exaggerating to say that there was a little bit of a, comment about the rural MAGA people being, not able to vote. But the actual truth is they've got those drop boxes in North Carolina ready to go. And I think they have. If you've lost your ID, they've actually made a way that you can, because of the floods and stuff, they have a way of fixing that. But now I'm going to do a little hurricane segment here. Heroes for Humanity. This is somebody at Chelsea was pointing out to me. She knows this guy. Her brother evidently is friends with him. But this is a Marine Force Recon sniper who operates at an extremely high level, doing extractions like in Afghanistan and stuff. And he's mobilizing Marines like him to fill in the gap where incompetence at FEMA is letting people be missing and die. Watch this 1 minute, 17-second segment on Heroes for Humanity. Dennis Price.
When Heroes for Humanity first showed up here in North Carolina after the hurricane, we immediately activated our ambassadors across the state and had boots on the deck immediately when this happened. When me and my team arrived, we saw chaos, funding falling through from either FEMA, the state, or however it was. And this does not surprise us, just because we know that systems will fail, but at the end, that's what Heroes for Humanity does, is people helping people, doing the right thing for the right reason, and it doesn't have to be worth it to do the right thing. We immediately hit the ground. We saw devastation, disaster, chaos, due to the Afghan evacs that we covered down on, the Ukraine initial invasion, the first 9 months of the war. Having that under our belt, we were able to show up and put calm to the chaos and able to provide cool, calm, collective leadership logistics and provide support to those to reach those hard-to-reach souls and those hard-to-reach places who are isolated in remote areas throughout the mountains from Asheville all the way north to Boone. We've covered down on all of western North Carolina, and truly we're able to, by the grace of God, able to help so many different people.
You know, people like this that have organizations like theheroesforhumanity.org, theheroesforhumanity.org, you give them $25, folks. I mean, it's our organization here online. I do these appeals, and like a $3,000 or $4,000 gift makes a massive difference to these folks, and that's what we do collectively. And you just do $25, $20, $10. But collectively, our audience will do like 3,000 or 4,000 or one of these. And I like to do that for, you can tell this person's got a pure spirit. But my question is, hurricane decimating North Carolina, Trump area, a lot of it's Trump territory. It's clearly Georgia, the same thing, and Florida, rather, the areas that are being hit. You know, in my Twitter feed, which, by the way, you really ought to go to lancewallnau.com, I post a lot more there than I do on Facebook, because at Facebook, you don't have the interaction as easy. In Twitter, it's all easy it's more personal and consequently more aggressive. I get a lot of trolls there. But then I answer them, hopefully not in a redemptive way, but I mean, I engage them, put it that way. I don't just bless them or delete them. I engage them, and they cuss at me and hate me. But they're interesting. I'm saying all that because I did a post, Carl, and I said, how many of you believe that the hurricanes are man-made, or that the Department of Defense or that governments actually can interfere with and to a degree manipulate the weather? You'd be shocked. Well, I don't think you would be, but I was shocked by the number of people that were full tilt Alex Jones and Rodney Howard-Browne. I watched him recently. The government has control of this, and they do what they can to influence or manipulate the weather. Is that true, Carl?
Well, I don't know about how true it is, or to what degree they're talking about manipulating the weather, but absolutely. Cloud seeding has actually been documented since the 1940s. I learned about it in high school in Keller in 2007. So cloud seeding is absolutely a real thing, where they actually augment and alter the ecosystem in such a way that they're adding chemicals in order to dissipate fog or to add additional rainfall, especially in Dubai and in the Middle East. This is well documented. So when people are saying, that's not a real thing, maybe you do need some more tinfoil in your house. I don't know. But it's a very well documented historically thing. It's a historic thing that's been done for decades, nearly a century now. So for people to say, that's just conspiracy jargon. No, it's not. Do your research.
So, I mean, but it's interesting when we have droughts and things like that in California or in Texas, that if Dubai has the ability to create rain, I mean, this is, you know the larger question is, I know some of you are upset with me right now. It's like, Lance, how could you not know this? But listen, my job is to try, I don't always do it, to only give you the wild, crazy, accurate conspiracy theories, not every conspiracy theory. Because if I went down that trail, I'd be sucked into the realm of fantasy. But this thing about the weather, it does pose a question. There was people send me information now, you know, on Twitter. And they have one guy that was a scientist talking about the concentrated utilization of lasers that can create a focal point of penetration in a certain stratosphere of the sky, so that they can affect and produce certain results. So you got the laser phenomena, and he's no lightweight. I mean, he was explaining the science behind it. It was like a TED Talk or something like that. So I'm aware of the fact that our distrust of government is so high, it's dangerously high. The good news is we have a high trust in autonomous voices. There are, you know, we listen to, like it's the Joe Rogan or the Bongino or you know, the Jordan Peterson and Daily Wire. So thank God. It's not like we don't, but if we ever lose that freedom of speech, America will blow up. I'm not a believer that there's going to be revolution that's going to be like a civil war. But if you ever want to create a concoction that'll do that, what you do is you shut down freedom of speech so that there's no idea exchange. You shut down and begin to persecute your political opponents with lawfare and lock them up. And then you go for the guns, and you shut down the First Amendment, and then you go for the Second Amendment. That's a surefire way within a certain period of time, taking the radical fringe and igniting them. And so America is a tinderbox, and we have an election cycle. I have friends of mine that are saying, hey man, if Trump wins, it's going to be worse than if he doesn't win. Imagine that. Imagine how goofy it is. I got to listen to leaders tell me, well, you know, the people I'm talking to say it's going to be even worse if Trump wins. It's not worse if Trump wins. Yeah, there'll be riots, but what are you going to have? You remember the summer of riots? That well-funded Democrat phenomena that was taking place all over the country. Democrat funded. You know why? Because there's a theory in politics that says right track, wrong track. And what you want to have during an election cycle is a real feeling you're on the wrong track. Republicans, conservatives are not funding riots. In spite of the January 6th insurrection fiction that was sold to you, Republicans and conservatives aren't really the riot crowd. The left is. Their NGOs are funded. And if Trump wins, boom, there'll be instantaneous manifestations of demons all over the country. Oh, it's going to be really bad if Trump wins. So, implication being, it might not be so bad if he doesn't win. Weak leaders need to be giving their space to strong leaders. Father, we pray that you will raise up strong leaders, strong voices, Churchillian leaders for the hour that will see the enemy prophetically, understand what needs to be done, and know what Israel ought to do, and give wise advice and wise counsel, discerning the times and speaking the truth. I'm praying for Steve Bannon right now. He's coming out of prison shortly. Within 3 days before the election, he'll be out of his forced isolation. And I believe that there's going to be a surge of truth. I don't pray against my enemies, Lord. I pray for the truth. And I pray that the truth will prevail, that masks will be dropped, and the American people's minds will come out of the seduction of media into a clarity that will enable them to see what is in their own best interest. In Jesus' name, help us, Lord. May this nation survive and not go under. All right, we're going to wrap it up here. You don't want to miss tomorrow's broadcast because I got stuff I didn't get to. That is the most exciting stuff that I have to cover, but I couldn't get to it. So we'll see you tomorrow.
Did you enjoy this latest episode? Please remember to share it with your friends, because the more knowledge you have, the better equipped you are to navigate the world.